جمع بيكون 22,939 مليون دولار. هون برجع على الملاحظة انه الرقم 16 و17 مليار دولار اللي كل الناس تتداولوا، الذي جرى التداول به في سياق التحضير لمؤتمر ساد، هو القيمة التقريبية لمشاريع المرحلتين الأولى والثانية فقط. يبلغ مجموع قيمة مشاريع هاتين المرحلتين بدون كلفة الاستملاكات حوالي 15.5 مليار دولار، وإذا زدنا الاستملاكات بصير المجموع 17.2 مليار دولار أمريكي. هلا بالنسبة للتوزيع القطاعي لبرنامج الاستثمارات العامة فهو على الشكل التالي: النقل 7,381 مليون دولار أو 32.2% من مشروع الاستثمار ككل. المياه والري 4,845 مليون دولار أي 21.1%. الصرف الصحي 2,682 مليون دولار أي 11.75%. إذا بناخذ المي والصرف الصحي والري بتلاقيهم تقريبا قد النقل تماما، يعني فرق بسيط. الكهرباء 5,592 مليون دولار أي 24.5%. الاتصالات 700 مليون دولار أي 3%. النفايات الصلبة 1,400 مليون دولار أي 6%. الإرث الثقافي 264 مليون دولار أي 1.15%. والمناطق الصناعية 75 مليون دولار أي 0.3%. يعني المجموع بيطلع على 22,939 بس يشمل الاستملاكات. بأن المشاريع المدرجة في البرنامج الاستثماري العام لا تشمل المشاريع الممولة بقروض اتفاقياتها مبرمة، ولا تشمل المشاريع التي أحيلت اتفاقيات تمويلها إلى مجلس الوزراء أو من مجلس الوزراء إلى مجلس الوزراء. فإننا نتطلع إلى أن تكون حصة المشاريع التي ستنفذ بواسطة الشراكة بين القطاعين العام والخاص على أكبر قدر ممكن، وخاصة في قطاعات الطاقة والنقل والاتصالات كما ستبينه مجريات هذه الجلسة. وانتم كلكم عارفين انه بعد هالجلسة في جلسة اللي بيفوتوا بالمشاريع بالتفاصيل، وبيكون مندوب النائب والإعمار رح يحكي بكل التفاصيل تبع الطرقات وهذيك المشاريع. وشكرا.
دكتور نديم الله. دكتور نديم الله مثل ما كنتوا بتعرفوا منه بحاجة لتعريف، هو مستشار الاقتصادي لدولة الرئيس وكذا شغلة قبل ما بعرف بدك.
Well, good morning. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I apologize for speaking in English for the sake of our friends and guests that have come from abroad. What I would like to do is I would like to emphasize some basic and highlight some basic points that many of them have been mentioned, but it's very important to highlight them, to put them all together to see the bigger picture. And here I would like to mention three things. One is a little bit about the capital investment program. Two, about the SADR and expectations and the role of SADR. And three, funding expectations and strategy that we expect in the coming few years. In terms of the capital investment program, what I would like to highlight, one, it has been prepared from bottom up. In other words, 1,200 municipalities were involved. All 9 ministries have been involved. The CDR has been involved, and the Office of the Prime Minister has been involved. And what has happened is when we grouped all of it, there was a serious political discussion that went on for months. So this is a plan which has been prepared for the first time and discussed among all political parties and all local authorities. And that's a very important point. Two, very important to understand, because of the length of the capital investment program, it's a process, not an end by itself. While we're going to present these projects to you, now there will, and we expect, some changes that will take place for a variety of reasons. One could be that there are major changes in technology that will allow some changes in the approach to certain projects and priorities of certain projects. So it's a dynamic process, and please don't look at it as it's an end by itself. It's a process that will start with the 250 projects, and it's a dynamic one, and we expect that we will get a lot of feedback that will allow some changes in the capital investment program. Three, it's very important to also understand, in the preparation of the capital investment program, we engaged both the World Bank as well as the IMF. The World Bank involvement was to validate the projects and the importance of these projects, and it's a very important seal and stamp for the international community. It's not a shopping list, it's not a list that Lebanese would like to have. These are critical projects that are needed for the economy. The IMF role is to validate the macro stability part of it, and the result has been finalized, and the IMF has concluded that the capital investment program, with a 5% adjustment in the budget over the coming 4 or 5 years, will lead the economy into a sustainable growth and stability. The second point I would like to discuss with you is what is the role of SAD and what are the expectations. There are two very important points. One, SAD, it's a contract between Lebanon and the international community, and this has been said in the opening session. And this contract is very simple. It's based on partnership, and it's based on Lebanese have to help themselves in order for the international community to help Lebanon. And therefore, the reforms, as been indicated, is a very critical component in the success of SAD. And that's one dimension of SAD. Obviously, the second dimension of SAD is the pledging, and we expect that at least for the phase one, which is about $10 billion, that a good part of the funding requirements for phase one will be achieved during and immediately after SAD. When I say the funding requirement for phase one, which is around $9–10 billion, it will be both the private sector as well as commitment by international financial institutions and bilateral contribution. The third point, what is our expectations and strategy for funding? Also, it was said, and I would like to summarize it, it's expected that 1/3 of the funding requirements will come from the private sector. So we are talking about $5 to $7 billion, and the projects that fit under this category will be discussed extensively in the coming few hours. Two, we expect funding to come in 3 different forms. One, there is a facility that was introduced by the international community called Concessional Financing Facility. This works exactly like subsidized loans by the central bank in Lebanon, meaning that governments will contribute money to a fund, and this fund will be used to subsidize the interest rate that Lebanon will receive. An example, I borrow today from the World Bank for 20–25 years, I pay around 3.5%. Now, with the subsidy that will come from the concession financing facility, that will be reduced to about 1.4%, which makes loans received this way almost 2/3 as grants compared to the commercial rates Lebanon borrows at. The second main source of funding will be coming, obviously, the third, the private sector is number one, the concessional financing facility is number two, and the third source for funding will come from the European Union. And there is a plan called External Investment Plan, and I recommend that many of the private sector who's interested in these projects to get more information about it, because it will help in the funding of the private sector as well. We expect to get, over the coming 10 years, about 25% of our funding requirement through the EU and the External Investment Plan. This is a target of the government of Lebanon. We are working with our friends and partners to achieve this goal. The remaining amount will be coming bilateral, and in this case we expect a good amount to come from the Arab countries. There has been some contacts, and the preliminary results we have been receiving are very encouraging in spite of the political or the political situation that prevailed over the last few months. The last point I would like to mention, and this is very, very important for this conference and for the success of the plan of the government of Lebanon. We are looking for fresh money. We are not looking at only modalities that will use money in the banking sector in Lebanon to fund these projects. If we concentrate on this as the only modality, the plan will not be very successful. So the challenge is to make sure that all modalities that will be discussed, especially after lunch, will imply a major injection of fresh money into the economy. This is a point that was highlighted by the governor of the central bank. I would like to highlight it again because if it's of paramount importance. So that's, in a nutshell, our funding expectations and funding strategy. And during the day, there will be a lot of discussion on many of these points, and there will be, at the end, a discussion session. I would be more than happy to answer some of these concerns that you might have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Mullah. Indeed, foreign direct investment is the main objective. We will leave all questions and answers till the end of the session. وهلا بعطي الكلام لمعالي وزير الطاقة والمياه المهندس سيزار ربي خليل. تفضل.
Excellencies, distinguished participants and attendees, ladies and gentlemen. To abide by the program, I will start with a foreword, then I will go to the prepared presentation for the two IPPs in Salata and in Zahrani. In 2010, the government of Lebanon has endorsed the policy paper for the electricity sector to serve as the sector's national strategy. Its key objectives include increasing generation capacity, diversifying fuel sourcing, gradually restructuring and increasing the tariff, rehabilitating and upgrading the existing power plants, and adopting the IPP law to encourage private sector participation in the construction of new power plants. The policy paper considered it was time to increase the country's generation capacity using the IPP/PPP model. It defined the capacity to be installed in participation with the private sector as 1,500 megawatts, followed in the longer term by an expansion of an additional 1,000 megawatts. Simultaneously, To make the system more appealing to the private sector, the government of Lebanon financed a short-term plan to reinforce the functional zones of generation, transmission, and distribution, and that was budget funded. It was the famous Budget Law 181. In line with the above, the government of Lebanon commissioned in 2013 the consultancy firm Mott MacDonald to conduct a feasibility study of the IPP. The study provided a preliminary analysis to guide decision makers on the IPP expectations as well as a roadmap to the next steps. It also identified the main features for IPP development, such as site locations, licensing procedures, preferred power technologies, related environmental matters, and financial and legal aspects. Launching the IPP program for the first time in Lebanon requires ensuring its attractiveness to private sector's investors, because as you all know, there are other programs and very attractive ones all across the MENA region and that have preceded us in that road path. For this reason, the government of Lebanon appointed in July 2017 the IFC to act as a lead transaction advisor. The IFC will assist in preparing detailed feasibility studies and will guide the procurement, negotiations, and financial closure phases of the pilot IPP projects located in Zahrani and Salata. By acting as a lead transaction advisor, IFC will develop a robust transaction structure that attracts qualified private sector partners for the project's implementation. If successful, these projects could serve as a precedent for future IPPs in the country and will increase investors' confidence in Lebanon's power sector. The transaction advisory process will follow a two-phased approach. Phase one will entail conducting a legal, technical, and commercial due diligence to assess the best options to structure the partnership between public and private entities, and phase two will include marketing of feasible projects to investors, pre-qualifying candidates, preparing tender documentations, assisting authorities in evaluating and negotiating the contracts with the winning bidders. It is of no doubt that implementing an IPP program in Lebanon will have numerous benefits. For example, the amortization of capital expenditure would relieve the government's balance sheet while achieving competitive cost of capacity. Another major benefit would be the ability to achieve fast execution, and this is what we've been suffering of so far. We will have a predictable timing to bring these new capacities online. The IPP programs would set out new performance benchmarks by creating operational and financial standards that can raise the levels for all other facilities, whether or not the private sector is involved. And in any case, this is the path we have followed in the distribution sector, in the electricity, where we have now 3 large distribution service providers that are evaluated on KPIs, on KPI basis and key performance indicators. They get paid they get paid according to their performance. So these are services that are provided to the Lebanese consumer. These are not contractors delivering an infrastructure projects and then taking off very quickly. Finally, I would like to thank you all for participating in, to this event. I would like to thank those who have prepared it, and I would like to pass on to the PowerPoint presentation. I don't know if it is on the screen there. So this is you're seeing on this slide the table of contents. I will talk a little bit about the policy paper, the IPP key objectives, the feasibility studies that have been done, the transaction advisory services, and the roadmap that is gonna be followed with the timeline for that. The policy paper, of course, has allowed for 700 megawatts as an emergency plan to be budget funded. This is the famous emergency plan. We have achieved so far 2 power plants, 1 new power plant in Zoo, 1 new power plant in GE. They have been commissioned. They are in service and they are supplying us with an additional 3 hours of electricity. And of course, we still have the famous Wal-Aamal project that you've heard about a lot these last 2 days that is still pending due to some administrative problems. The policy paper has set out a strategic decision that all capacity that would be put online on the grid after that 700 megawatts would be achieved by the private sector through the IPP/PPP modality. And hence, we needed 1,500 megawatts in the first phase and an additional 1,000 megawatts in the second phase. Of course, the policy paper has also set forth the strategic decisions concerning the fuel sourcing, whereas 2/3 of our our power plants should be fired on gas, natural gas, which is a cheaper combustible, a cheaper fuel, and it is a less pollutant fuel than other fuels that have been used so far. And we do all know the consequences of certain choices that has been taken back in the 1990s, where we have relied on diesel oil, a very expensive fuel that has resulted in an excessive deficit on the Lebanese balance sheets in the electricity, and it is a pollutant fuel. We have also defined the way to go forward in restructuring the tariff. With increasing the capacity, we will rely less and less on private generation that is costing us dearly, and hence we would be able to increase the tariff in a way not to increase the overall bill that is being paid by the Lebanese. So overall, the Lebanese consumer will be paying about 15 to 30% less than he is paying now for having the electricity. And of course, at the end, the endorsement of legislations that would allow the private sector to invest and to contribute in the electricity generation subsector. The IPP key objectives, I have mentioned in the forwards few points. We needed to develop a world-class regulatory framework in a way to attract the investors that are being offered other opportunities in other countries that have a track record in the matter. So we needed to show our seriousness in the matter to be able to attract those investors. We needed to develop a strategic model that can be repeated and replicable in future rounds, because you know, the investment in the generation sector should be sustained, should be continuous, because the growth and the energy demand is always growing. It is growing with the natural increase of the population, of the businesses, of our needs for power. We have also witnessed another extraordinary increase in Lebanon with the influx of massive Syrian displaced due to the crisis in Syria. So if we had sustained our investments in the generation subsector, we wouldn't have ended with this electricity shortage we are facing today. Our key objectives are also to achieve the delivery of those projects by 2022, and of course an acceptable cost on EDL, whereas EDL now is suffering of the high cost of electricity generation. Everyone knows that we sell the kilowatt hour at an average of 9.6 US cents, while it costs us more than 15 US cents to produce it today. Where they're indicating I just have 5 minutes left, so I have to go very fast. I will just talk about the pre-feasibility that has been conducted by Mott MacDonald. As I have said, the benefits are all known. I will go to the pre-feasibility very quickly. The pre-feasibility has examined, of course, the site locations. 24 variables were studied, were ponderated, were weighted, and we ended with two best locations. The first one is in Sal'ata, the second one is in Zahrani. Everyone knows that strategically we need the power plants to be near the shore, so we will be able to supply them by the fuel, either natural gas or fuel oil or diesel oil or whatever it is. Plus, you know, Lebanon is a very small country. Land is scarce. Land is very costly. The cost of the square meter on the shore could rise up to $10,000 per square meters. Whereas, so we had to go also to the land that is owned by the government, or the land that has been expropriated in the 1970s. Like Sal'ata, we see the slide before that, if we can go. The slide before that, this is the Sal'ata side. We are addressing the northern part of it for this first phase, where we will be developing our first IPP. The Sal'ata site had been expropriated in the 1970s, so that's why that was an additional and an advantage to go there. The second site we can see here. Sorry, I should. The second site we are seeing here is the Zahrani site. We can see in red, the red shaded area. This is the old Zahrani power plant. The violet shaded area is the new site, where the new site will be, and we will have 40,000 square meters that will always be there in the oil installations in Zahrani, and the yellow shaded area is the maritime domain. So part of it is in the maritime domain. That was also addressed during the power rental tender back on May 9, 2017. For the capacity distribution, the preliminary results of this feasibility study showed that we could place 500 megawatts, about 500 megawatts in each of those sites. 500 megawatts. The size was chosen in a way to attract the maximum number of investors. If we go for 1,000 megawatts, then those who can finance that will be less, and then we will have a lesser number of investors. That was the optimum size that could attract the maximum interest. Plus, that was the size that we can dissipate on our grid, in our grid, and then the additional surfaces, the additional acreage that is left in the second table shows how much more megawatts and how much more capacity we can develop in these two sites. Of course, every development, every increase of the generation capacity should go hand in hand with an upgrade of the transmission grid, because if we produce the electricity and we cannot convey it, we cannot transport it, we cannot transmit it to the consumer, it is of no use. So these two sites also had been studied, had been mentioned in the master plan for transmission, the one that was approved in 1997 and the one that has been approved in 2017 in our very government, in our very cabinet. Now we have mentioned the upgrade of these two locations also. So the IPP, the more detailed, of course, more detailed studies should follow to list the soil investigation, the topographical surveys, the mathematical surveys. All of that are to be followed in the detailed studies that have to be done. The feasibility study also addressed the fuel sourcing. The strategic choices that has been taken is that the natural gas would be our primary fuel. It is less expensive, it is the cheapest, and it is the less pollutant. Our secondary fuel would be the heavy fuel oil. The heavy fuel oil is a bit more expensive, but it is a lot more pollutant, and of course, our backup fuel would be diesel oil. Diesel oil is more expensive than the HFO, but a little bit less pollutant than the HFO. Anyway, the natural gas will be abundant in our region. We can import it either through the pipeline, the Arab gas pipeline, when it becomes operational again, or it would be our indigenous natural gas that is abundant in our maritime waters, and we have already signed 2 exploration and production agreements. Drilling should start in 2017, and a few years after that we should have our indigenous gas. Also, we could import it in its liquefied form as LNG, and we are now in the course of a tender for 3 FSRUs, floating storage regasification units, in the 3 sites of Al-Iktissad, Sal'ata, and Zahrani to import the LNG to fire our gas power plants, and hence to reduce our cost by at least 40%. The generation technology that has been chosen, well, the generation technology is the nexus of the fuel that has been chosen. So for natural gas, the combined cycle gas turbines are the most efficient, the most efficient for this gas, and hence they have been adopted. The grid connectivity also has been studied. As I spoke about it, the 2 sites are can be easily connected to the grid. They have been mentioned in the master plans, and projects have been developed there. And at last, I will take my last minute about the transaction advisor, services that has been started with the IFC. I spoke about the 2 phases in my foreword. I will not go in details about the tasks that will be achieved by the transaction advisor, and the bid documents that they will be producing, and the procurement flow chart that they would follow, that will govern this transaction. I just want to go to the last slide that shows the roadmap. The roadmap between the signature with the IFC as a main transaction, as a lead transaction advisor, and the signature with the IPP should take between 18 and 14 months. I know this is a long period. I am confident that we will be able to achieve it in less time than that, because lots of the work has been done on a good faith basis by the IFC even before we had signed or we had initialized even the agreement with the IFC. So finally, I hope I have in this quick presentation I have achieved to expose the way that has been followed, and the way that we will go forthwith in these 2 projects. We hope we will have many interested investors to bid for our 2 IPPs. This will be the way forward for Lebanon. This will be the model to follow beyond the execution of their Al-Aamal power plant that is allowed for in the policy paper and in the budget law of 181. Thank you very much for your attention.
شكرا معالي الوزير. الكلمة الآن لمعالي وزير الاتصالات الأستاذ جمال جراح، يليها عرض من قبل الأستاذ جمال فخوري عن مركز المعلومات، ومن ثم سنستعرض مشروعي المطار وطريق خلدة نهر إبراهيم.
صباح الخير. طبعا كلنا نعي أهمية تكامل البنى التحتية كامل من البنى التحتية القادرة واللازمة على تطوير أي اقتصاد. الحقيقة المعطى الثاني واللي تحدث عنه دولة الرئيس صباحا هو التكامل بين القطاع الخاص والقطاع العام. كيف نحول الطاقات اللبنانية، رأس المال اللبناني، من كونتراكتور إلى بارتنر، من مقاول إلى شريك في دعم وتطوير البنى التحتية في لبنان. بالتأكيد قطاع الاتصالات هو جزء أساسي من البنى التحتية اللازمة لتطوير الاقتصاد. مشان هيك وزارة الاتصالات قامت بخطوات كثير كبيرة بمجال تطوير قطاع الاتصالات اللي هو لازم وأساسي وضروري لتطوير الاقتصاد. ما قمنا به حتى الآن هو المشروع الأهم. الحقيقة ما حأحكي عن كل المشاريع اللي قامت فيها وزارة الاتصالات، لكن حأحكي عن مشروع الفايبر أوبتكس اللي بده يوصل لكل الأراضي اللبنانية، اللي يأمن إنترنت سريع لكل المناطق اللبنانية، لكل اللبنانيين، لكل النشاطات الاقتصادية اللبنانية، لكل المؤسسات، لكل المستشفيات، للمدارس، للمصارف، ولكل نشاط اقتصادي يلزمه انترنت سريع. هذا المشروع اللي خصص له بالموازنة الدولة اللبنانية 300 مليون دولار بإذن الله مع أول شهر القادم بينطلق هذا المشروع، والاستفادة منه بدها تكون سريعة حيث ما نصل بالكابين، حيث ما نوصل نحط كابين وسيزار يعطينا كهرباء للكابين، راح يكون في سرعة مينيموم 50 ميجا بت بير سكند. المشروع الثاني المشروع الثاني الحقيقة اللي بدي أحكي عنه أو مشروعين هو الناشونال داتا سنتر. كلنا الموجودين بالقاعة رجال أعمال ونعرف أهمية أن يكون لدينا ناشونال داتا سنتر، أهمية الاي كلاود كومبيوتينج، أهمية الداتا أناليسيز، أهمية توفير المعطيات اللازمة والإنفورميشن اللازمة بالوقت المناسب وبوقت سريع وبطريقة سكيور لحتى نقدر نستعمل هذه الداتا على الصعيد الوطني ونقدر نطور أعمالنا مع ما يرافقها من توفير بالاستثمار. كلنا بنعرف كل المصارف بلبنان، كل الأعمال بلبنان عندها داتا سنتر، عندها ديزاستر سنتر، عم تصرف مصاري كثير بس تحفظ معلوماتها وتكون بمكان آمن وعندها قدرة على تو ريتريف هالانفورميشن وهالداتا بوقت سريع. هذا المشروع الحقيقة نحن عم نخطط انه يكون بالشراكة بين القطاع الخاص والقطاع العام لما له من أهمية كبرى على صعيد تطوير الاقتصاد وما له من أهمية على صعيد مواكبة التطور بعالم التكنولوجيا وعالم الاتصالات. حيكون في برزنتيشن تفصيلية عن هذا الموضوع. المشروع الثاني الحقيقة اللي بنحب انه نعمله مع القطاع الخاص هو السبمارين لاين. كلنا بنعرف نحن موصولين عبر خطين بحريين مع اوروبا لحتى ننقل الداتا، لننقل الانترنت عليهم، لكن انا برأيي هؤلاء الاثنين غير كافيين نظرا لقدرات لبنان المستقبلية وقدرة الاستهلاك للإنترنت في لبنان وأهمية الإنترنت لتطوير الأعمال. نحن بالعشر سنين اللي مضوا كنا بايعين 80 جيجا، ب8 شهور الأخيرين بعنا 110 جيجا. هذا أكبر دليل على الحاجة للإنترنت والحاجة للإنترنت السريع. مشان هيك نحن عم نخطط لإقامة سبمارين لاين مع أوروبا ديريكت ثالث، وهذا أهميته أنه ممكن يحول لبنان إلى مركز إقليمي لكل الشرق الأوسط ويكون مركز عبور ومرور للإنترنت الدولي إلى كل المنطقة، ويستعيد لبنان وهو قادر ولدينا الكفاءات الكبيرة لإدارة هذا الموضوع أن نحول لبنان إلى مركز إقليمي للإنترنت وتزويد الثالث اللي كمان عم نحاول نعمله مع القطاع الخاص هو السبيكتروم اناليسيز والسبيكتروم نيو ديزاين السبيكتروم، لانه عندنا فوضى بالجو اكثر من عجله السير اللي بالطرقات بتشوفوها. دينا بهذا المشروع نتامل انه القطاع الخاص يساهم فيه مساهمه فعاله، لانه اصبح من الضروري ان ننظم السبيكتروم، لان لما له من اهميه هذا سكيل ريسورسز منه مفتوح، هذا محدود، وعلينا تنظيمه واستعماله افضل استعمال حتى نقدر نستفيد منه للحد الاقصى وننتهي من المشاكل اللي عم يسببها الفوضى بالسبيكتروم، ان كان على الاتصالات الخليويه او على كل شيء بحاجه لموجات نظيفه ومعروفه ومنظمه. المشروع الرابع اللي هو سايبر سكيورتي، انه تكون نحن عندنا امان كامل باتصالاتنا بالنتورك تبعنا، بكل ما هو متصل ب او بحاجه انه يكون امن ومحفوظ بطريقه جيده وغير معرض للاستعمال. هول الاربع مشاريع الحقيقه اللي وزاره الاتصالات عندها نيه تطلقه بالشراكه مع القطاع الخاص، واللي هن برايي بيساهموا مساهمه كثير فعاله، اضافه للقضايا اللي ذكرت انه نخلق بنى تحتيه اساسيه ومهمه وقادره على دعم الاقتصاد وتطويره. شكرا لاستماعكم.
شكرا معالي الوزير. 7 دقائق عرض عن الداتا سنتر الاستاذ جمال فخوري اللي هو كان شيف تكنولوجي اوفيسر لترك تيليكوم.
Okay. Thank you, Your Excellencies, members of the committee. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for this opportunity. I just want to give a brief summary about the NDC, the National Data Center project in Lebanon, without getting too much into technical details, and make it as much as feasible for everybody to understand. Three important points in this presentation. From the inception, this project was meant to be part of the PPP project. We thought about it a lot in the ministry, whether for the ministries, either the ministries of Ojero to do this project or to go to the private sector. And I will outline in all the slides why this is a perfect fit for the private sector to get involved in for various reasons. And the second part, I just want to give you an overview about what's this national data center going to do for the country, for the economy, and for its reputation in the ICT domain. And thirdly, we considered all the aspects to make sure that this is a successful partnership without bureaucracies, having the public interest, the public policy intact, and also the private sector assurances that this project will go through without having to get into the debates and into the bureaucracy of getting things done, as was in the past. As you can see from here, all the pillars, these are the 4 pillars that are set by the privatization policy partnership program in order to consider a project as part of an eligibility for this private sector. And therefore, we have identified the needs that are being fulfilled from a policy perspective, from a private sector perspective, and from the needs of the companies and the government entities in Lebanon. The description of the technical solution, which I will go, like I said, I will be very brief, sure that we don't face these as we are implementing the project or operating. Of course, the benefits to the economy, to the country, are paramount with this national data center. This is being applied almost globally. One of the main pillars is the innovation. We will be able from day one to provide computing power and data storage for entrepreneurs, SMEs, and innovators without having to invest in the infrastructure and the cost of the internet and the bandwidth to be able to use those facilities at zero cost. Public safety, this is a very paramount topic. All of the municipalities today and all the transportation and all modes of security are being segmented. There is a great need to gather all the information, to do the proper analytics, to provide extreme security, just like it's been done in many parts of the world, and especially in the GCC. In tourism, this will help as a facility for the tourism industry to gather a lot of information from hotels, from agencies, from airlines, from all international participants in the sector, into a depository where it can be analyzed and provide very statistical data for the Ministry of Tourism. In education, that will act as a depository again for educating, for having special curriculums, any type of training that's required, that can be accessed by all students, all engineers and software developers that can offer training courses on this data center. In agriculture is very important for Lebanon, and this data center will be able to, again, capture all of the information from rain, from heat, from soil, from chemicals, any sensors that could be put into the ground or on the air, and could be analyzed with the data center and provided to all the farmers to predict patterns and be able to have an Internet of Things capability to monitor the crops during various seasons.
Mr. Fahoudi, 3 minutes.
Yes, 3 minutes.
You're going too slow.
Okay. Well, let me just say what could be basically what can the government offer. With the help of one of the leading consultancy arms, Lebanon is 100% owned by Deutsche Telekom, which is one of the largest data center operators in the world. We've hired them to make sure that an as-is situation is actually attained, what can the ministry offers. And we have located 4 locations that are suitable for this data center. One of them in Dikwaini, in Ras Beirut, in Arbaniye, and Jurut. And this is an important slide, not only that we've done the analysis on what an as-is situation, we've also talked to the private sector and to the public sector about their needs for an NTC. And these are some of the organizations that we have spoken with. And we have segmented based on their needs. Most of the, as you can see from this table, that all of them are interested in co-location facilities. All of them are interested in having infrastructure as service, and to the most of the expense, all of them need disaster recovery and business continuity for their operations. Then we discussed the models of operating such data centers. data center will be a TIA, Telecommunications Industry Association, Tier 3 certified, meaning it will be able to sustain environmental problems, natural disasters. It will be fire protected, security protected, physical security, and cyber security. And it will also be powered with a downtime not less than 7 hours per year. And this is a planned outage. This is one of the important slides that from day one, the needs that we have gathered from the market, and especially from the government, will occupy 1/3 of this data center if it's built properly. These occupancy coming mainly from the Ministry of Telecommunication, or GERO, Touch and Alpha, MIG-1 and MIG-2, coming from the security forces. They need backup and recovery and data storage. And then from ONSAR in developing its government activity program. Why the public? Why the private sector? This is a very important slide. As you can see from the table before on the screen, that the best options go to the PPP because the private sector has the knowledge, has the speed, has the agility to build such a center. Number 2, they carry all the innovation. Number 3, they invite the international players in this domain, such as Orange, Telecom Italia, Deutsche Telekom, or BT, to start providing services in Lebanon, which is greatly needed. And also it provides the ability that the government could look at options of having to not only provide the assets, meaning the infrastructure or the land and the fiber connectivity, but also in enabling, giving special consensus, whoever participates in these such programs, that they have benefits, for example, on reduced internet rates, reduced fiber optic, reduced international connectivity, and the land is there and available, the buildings are there and available. This is just the last slide I'd like to get into, and basically outlines the ICE sector in Lebanon. And as you can see, that over the period of 5 years, this data center can have a growth in the ICE sector by around $121 million. And it's segregated basically in hardware, and building hardware and bringing hardware into the country, and the software services. The cost estimate for this data center initially is roughly $80 million, and this is with an occupancy of 30%, where the need is there, and it has a tendency to grow to $180 to $100 million over a period of 10 years. It's up to the talent in Lebanon is very high. The motivation is very high for such projects. There's a lot of ICT companies. It's actually Lebanon is ranked as high as Jordan and Syria in the ICT sector. This is before the war, of course. There's a lot of imports that are going on from Lebanon. Almost roughly around 180 million are done in software services, and 100 million are done in hardware and in other IT services. So I would like to thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Fakouri. Please stay with us for you'll be able to answer questions later on about this project, other projects. I ask Mr. Omar to join us. It's okay. We'll start at the airport. You have the biggest budget project, so Dr. Duha is the Director of Flight Safety at the Lebanese Director General of Civil Aviation. He also chaired the Turkish Middle East Aviation Safety Group in 2009, and he's going to talk to us about the airport project, the expansion of the airport.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm glad to be here with you today and glad to present about our expansion project, the airport. We'll start here with the outlines of this presentation. So it's a straightforward presentation. Our airport, as you may know, is the only one airport engaged in international air operations. The current area is 7 million square meters, and we have only the built-up areas is 150,000 square meters. It includes three runways. Okay, sorry for this. 3 runways. One of these runways is used for air taxi and general aviation operations. 29 aircraft stands, 21 gates, 21 air bridges, 5 baggage claims, short and long-term parking areas, and 3 lounges. So the current facility of the airport, it only occupies or have a capacity of 6 million passengers that already exceeded this number, and we'll go through it later. The economic growth and globalization have seen demand for the air travel advance rapidly in the last 20 years, where the air traffic has increased, and the region is forecast to grow at an average of 6%. Currently, the number of passengers at Beirut Airport has exceeded the capacity of the airport and is now about 8.3%. 8.3 million during 2017. And since 2012 until today, the graph shows increase, and the trend is increasing. And what is important for now to mention, as Excellency Minister Fenianos showed, that the number is increasing, and during the last 2 months, January and February 2018, we showed an increase of 10% until now. So when we have additional applications for new operators who are planning to operate into Lebanon this season, and these are major European operators who are intending to operate into Beirut this year. So we expect an additional increase more than 10% throughout 2018. For that, the Ministry of Transport has put a vision and decided to, on an action plan to expand the airport because this increase is changing from day to day. And as you know, there's the major master plan that was issued in 1992. It has undergone modifications, and now initially it's for 6 million passengers, and now we have designed a new strategy to modify the plan to include up to 20 million passengers. So the project is the airport expansion project includes 2 major phases. The phase 1, it will show an expansion of the airport of the West Wing to include up to 6 million passengers, and there's the extra one that you can see. So this one is the West Wing of the airport, facing the seashore. It's the yellow area. It's the area that should be extended to, let's say, Middle East Airlines premises. It will raise up to 6 million passengers. The second phase is on the west part of the airport, on the east part. These yellow areas shows the plans for the expansion and should include up to 6 million passengers as well. So the total capacity or the plan should include up to 20 million passengers. So this is the 3D perspective of the plan of the airport. Okay. The advantages and why we are trying to do this. The airports are increasingly being viewed as an incentive for local economic development and has an effect of promoting growth in tourism and financial services, including wholesale and retail. The expansion of Beirut Airport will lead us to be committed to high standards of corporate governance, and it will help in sustainable development process, which is a resilient process that balances objectives and stakeholders' interests within a holistic management framework. The Middle East regional aviation market is forecast to grow by 5% and will see an extra 322 million passengers a year on routes to, from, and within for the region by 2036, and this is per IATA. The project timeline, so the legal due diligence, should be completed by end of this year, December 2018. The
launching of the tendering process should be completed by December 2019, and the contract award should be made like in June 2020. The expected capex, the total expected investments needed for the expansion of the airport, including the terminal with the necessary infrastructure improvements, are estimated up to $500 million. So this is the total capex. We're talking about only the two phases. The plan for the government to expand the airport on a PPP basis and its objectives is to access the private sector funding, transfer development construction risk to the private sector, transfer operations and maintenance risks to the private sector, introduce operational effectiveness, introduce innovation, free government budgets for other sectors, and introduce new revenue streams for the government. The expected role of the government is to provide good governance and undertake a transparent tendering process, include enough non-aeronautical activities to make the project profitable for the private sector, attract funding for multilateral financial institutions. The expected role of the private sector is to finance, build, operate, and maintain new terminal. Operation and maintenance may apply to entire airport depending on the final deal. Introduce operational efficiencies as well. The next step would be that the government has decided to start on working on this expansion, and the High Council of Privatization has been mandated to carry out on the PPP basis, and the Council of Privatization will start soon by assigning or retaining advisors to assist in the structuring of this transaction and the tendering of the project. So by conclusion, without increasing the airport capacity, Lebanon will lose out on business opportunities and competitiveness and tourism. Lebanon has good transport links, but the expansion will be the best way to create additional capacity. This expansion will provide a unique opportunity to build a long-term and sustainable legacy for our neighbors by investing in improving the local environment, by generating thousands of job opportunities and apprenticeships, and helping to drive improvements to public, private, and road networks. And this expansion will deliver job opportunities for the local communities, additional apprenticeships, the legacy of skilled local experts for future infrastructure projects, and new trade and export opportunities for local businesses. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. أدوحة. أكيد مجلس الماء والأعمار ودار الهندسة كثير ساهموا بهذا المشروع، ونتابع مع مجلس الماء والأعمار الأستاذ إلي حلو، خبير الطرقات بلبنان، ليحكينا عن طريق خلدي نهر إبراهيم.
Good morning, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I will be presenting to you one of the largest projects in land transport, which is the Aibid-Bayi-Khaldi Expressway. We'll go through the presentation very quickly because I guess I don't have much time. Once we get here we go. This is the map of Lebanon. On that you can see along the coast the M50 coastal highway. This is designated as M50. It runs along the coast. On that, along that highway, pieces of the highways are already built, and there are other pieces that are missing. We can see a major link missing right in the middle, which connects the northern part of it to the southern part of it. These are known as northern entrances to Beirut and southern entrances to Beirut. On top of that issue, we have another piece right adjacent to the area. Here we go, we see the connection. Along to that, going to the north side, you see a red line, which is the northern entrance to Beirut continuation toward the north. And the reason it is red is because of the high level of congestion. So how we're trying to resolve that issue is by proposing a new project. You see here a picture. This is a daily picture. Okay, every day you see that picture along the coastal highway. And not only during the day, you can enjoy it during the night. So if you look at traffic conditions along the coastal highway, and you can check that every single morning on Google Map, for the people who enjoy Google Map, it tells you the level of congestion. Just at a quick measure, we can run from a speed or a design speed of an 80 kilometer an hour getting in from the north to a speed of 16 kilometer an hour in the PM or in the AM. The same story is true on the southern side. So we have this whole agglomeration of greater Beirut area stuck or sunk with traffic every day. I show here a quick chart. That's supposed to be a peak hour morning and evening. We have no more of that. We have a peak day. Even those extremities in the morning and the evening, both ends are being stretched into the night and the early morning hours. This is a picture how we think greater Beirut area would look like in 2035. Well, sometimes we see that even in 2017 and 2018. This shows the red, this is where the level of service is F for the traffic people, where basically delays are beyond the any capability of any road. The green line is the first project, which is the Beirut, starting from Khaldi on the screen right now. Khaldi is on your left side on the screen, and we're gonna move, going now, as this picture moves, we're going in the north direction. All the yellow circles or yellow areas are interchanges along the alignment. And we see now we're leaving the Matan area into the Kasserwan area, where the alignment continues all the way to Aibi. The alignment is really divided into two distinct areas. The first part, which is Khaldi to Dubai, is basically an elevated bridge, 20 kilometer long, 3 to 4 lanes in each direction, cost about construction cost about $775 million, and expropriation cost is about $850. Urban area, flat terrain. As this is a picture of how the bridge could be. If I go back to this one, right under the two viaducts, we are expecting to have a public transport system in the middle and service roads on each side of the system. As we move on to the other project, you see three colors on the screen. The colors in blue represent tunnels, and the alignment in red is bridges, and the alignment in black is at grade. You can see the distance is about 18 kilometers long, going through a mountainous areas and with few interchanges as it is depicted in the picture. This is how we see the project, the project in Kasserwan going. We have a mix and match of bridges. Some of them are arch bridges, some of them are balanced cantilever or segmental, some of them are straightforward I-beam, and tunnels. We have a total of about 8 kilometer tunnels, twin. When I mean twin is both directions, so we have a tunnel for each direction, with the longest tunnel about 2.8 kilometers. This is a scenario of splitting the project. It doesn't have to be the same scenario, but this scenario came in from how can we connect the various sections and segments of the projects to the local networks, so we can put in operation this project in segments, not necessarily all in one go. Where are we with the project so far? We have several studies either completed. We have the right-of-way for the part from Aibi to Dubai already approved by the Council of Ministers early this year. We're continuing with the next section, which is from Dubai to Khaldi, finalizing the decree to be for approval at the Council of Ministers. So this will bring us to the last slide. I'm not going to be late on this. Where are we right now? What are the next steps required? The next steps basically are the decision whether to go on a PPP for this project based on toll collection for this road, and the share of the government versus the share of the private sector. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hello. We have 10 minutes left for questions and answers. Mr. Jisr is here. Mr. Fadi Fawaz, who has worked on all these projects as well, is here. And we have the speakers that have spoken about each one of the projects. So please, any questions you have.
wonderful series of presentations. I just have a question for the airport investment. What's the revenue stream on it for private sector?
Investors should do their own studies. Investors should do their own studies for this.
Let me say that there are many revenue streams for the airport. Some are, of course, taxes, some are duty-free, rentals, there is parking, there is fueling. So there are many revenue streams to an airport, and obviously these will be studied during the process of due diligence eventually.
Ziad, if I may say something. Yesterday we had a meeting about the airport. It will be divided by 2 phases. Currently we're doing the emergency phase, which is $200 million. As the Minister Finianos have said, the government will spend $88 million to upgrade the current situation, which need to be done before end of year. Currently $20 million in the pipeline, $70 million it will be in the next few months to have the upgrading before the end of the year. The stages which Mr. Omar have spoken about are the 2 new terminals, which will be the west and the east terminal. The west will be built, whereas the current situation, the VIP and the army barrack will be. It will be, it will be dismantled, will be taken to the end of the terminal, and the new terminal will be done over there. This new terminal will have a cost of around $450 million and will incorporate around 24 tunnels for airport, for airplane, between 20 for small airplane and 4 for large airplane. This is the phase 1 which we need to incorporate in the next 4 years. Afterward, we'll go to the east side where we'll incorporate the new terminal, whereas the custom and everything will be done, and all of them will be communicated together to create this. So this is why we need a PPP project with a management and a contractor to handle the whole situation. Thank you.
مع اعتبار أهمية لمطار بيروت ودعمه، ليه ما بنفكر بمطار الرئيس ريني معوض وإنمائه وتفعيله؟ ما هي الأسباب اللي بتأخر المشروع هيدي؟ شكرا.
شكرا. نحن اليوم عم نحكي عن مطار بيروت رفيع حريري الدولي. مطار الأيعات هو جزء من الباكج اللي عندكم إياه، بس ما رح ندخل بالتفاصيل.
زياد خلينا نجاوبهم عليها بليز. زياد خلينا نجاوب عليها. تفضل. مطار الأيعات عنده مشكلتين. أولا لما تطلع الطيارة we need to coordinate with the Syrian aviation. Number 1, which is a political decision. تطلع الطيارة بتصير فوق الجو السوري، بدها coordination with the political. ما فيك تجي من فوق، مدروسة القصة. أنت بس ما فيك، بده يصير في تنسيق مع الإدارة السورية للأفيشن. تطلع من المطار بعد 4 دقائق بتصير فوق الأجواء السورية. هيدي أولا. هيدي أنا معك، نحن حاطينه أساسي هذا الموضوع، بس في وضع سياسي هلا حاليا، في ستاب حاليا. بس ثاني شيء بدها تتألف الهيئة الناظمة لحتى تطور الموضوع، المنظومة الكاملة لموضوع الأجواء وموضوع المطارات كيف بده يمشي. بس أول وحدة عندنا مشكلة سياسية يلي تفضلت فيها. شكرا.
Thank you. I come from China Energy. Yes, I have a question for Mr. Sisa, Minister of Energy and Water. Yes, we are very interested in Lebanon's power plant project. Yes, for this project, could you introduce the specific policy for this project? How long? How many years for the operation period? How could you guarantee our profit? Thank you.
The Minister of Energy has unfortunately left us, but Mr. Fawaz will attempt to address it.
Those are PPP projects. There are 3 power plants, one in Zahrani, one in Salata, and one in not the Al-Aamal is already taken. So the guarantee is part of the privatization. It's, and you will see this afternoon how the financial structure will be done, and you will have an idea about how the guarantee will be done, about the financial model to take care of it.
Well, we're happy to arrange for a conversation with the ministry in order to give you fuller information on that. One there, 2 questions, and then we will end it there. We'll be respecting our time frame today.
Good morning, Antoine Menassa, Alpha Homme d'Affaires Libanais de France. I wanted only to thank you for every hope you're giving us to be back to this country. Thank you very much to each of you. Today we read that Lebanon Investment in Infrastructure Conference. It's a conference I consider it's generalized for all Lebanon. And part of my question was I wanted to ask also the same question about the airport of Al-Iktissad. But we don't forget that we have also Hamad Airport, we have also Raya Airport, and we hope that all these projects will be done on the whole territory. It's really important that we got all that. I'm not talking only about the airport. I want only also to add that as chairperson, Economic Committee in the World Lebanese Cultural Union, we hope that the immigration, Lebanese immigration, got its place in the reconstruction bit here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Nassa. As Ambassador Duquesne mentioned earlier, and as several of us have talked about in the past, we really need the various laws regulating the various sectors to be implemented. In the case of civil aviation, we need a regulatory authority for civil aviation that will create a master plan for our airports in Lebanon. This normally should be the first thing we do before we do anything else. We're going to start with Beirut Airport because of the urgent needs for its expansion, but definitely a master plan for civil aviation is desperately needed. Take one more question over there, and then we'll be done.
Hello, everyone. My question goes for Mr. Jisr and Mr. Hello. You said that 32% of the investment program will be dedicated to develop the transport sector. If we can have just a high-level, idea about the priority projects in the transport sector, and if this the budget in the transport sector will cover also the revitalization of the rail, public transport projects. And one last question is related to the road project that was presented by Mr. Hello. How can it be attractive for the private sector to participate in?
أولاً لما عم نحكي بالنقل، النقل يعني المطار، المرافق والطرقات، مش بس نقل الطرقات. هلا بالنسبة ليش فكرنا بالPPP مثلا مش بالBOT ولا بأي سيستم تاني؟ لأنه المفروض المشروع ينجح